So question 9 is about project scheduling. All of the text doesn't really matter, so I'm not going to read it, but you can read it yourself if you want. So in part 1 we have to complete a table saying which activities depend on which activities. And so basically write the smallest possible list of other activities which need to be completed before activity X can begin. So first of all, A, B, and C don't depend on anything. They're just coming out of the source, so they depend on nothing. You can just write little dashes. Activity D, well, we look at what activities are going into the node that activity D comes out of is just A. We can also see that E comes out of that node as well, and the only activity that's going into that node is A, so E also only depends on A. We can see the node from which activity F comes from is this one, and the only activities going into that node is C. Now G might catch you up, so G is coming out of this node, and you can see going into that node we have B, so G depends on B. G also depends on, you can see there's a dummy going into that node as well, and what goes to that dummy? Well, C. So effectively C goes straight to that node as well, so G therefore depends directly on C, because the dummy doesn't represent a time taken or an activity, it's just showing that C goes to that node, so G also depends on C. If we look at H, that comes out of this node, so what's going into this node? Well, we have F, we have G, so we can also see that B goes to this node, and this node also, via the dummies, it goes directly over to that node that's circled in red. So that means that H also depends directly on B. And for the same reasoning, because C goes to that red colored node, and then a dummy brings that red colored node over to the red circled node, that means that H also depends directly on C. Now for I, we have a similar thing going on, so obviously E goes into I, but we also have that dummy coming from the green circled node, and what's going to the green circle node? It's B and C. And they go via a dummy to the red circle node, therefore I also depends on B and C. Since J comes out of that same node, the activities it depends on are going to be the exact same. So K comes out of this node, and you can see this node is the exact same as this green node, because this green node is just being brought across by the dummy, and since there are no other activities, it's going to be the exact same as the activities that H depends on. Then for activity L, that comes out of this node, and we only have two activities going into that node, and they are D and J. So in part 2 we have to calculate the early and late times for each event and complete the diagram doing that. And it says show relevant supporting work if necessary, so I'm actually not going to show any because it's just easier to all show on the diagram. So the source node is always going to have 0 and 0, and now we're just going to look at the 3 coming out of the source node. So obviously to get to this node the only answer is 14, that's the early time. And for this one, well actually this one we have the 14 going in as well, so we'll leave that for now. And for A going into this node, we have 14 as well. Now for that middle node, we have B, which is 12, and we have 14 as well going into that node. So when we're going for the early time, we always do the bigger number, because if we write 14 here, think about it, this point can't start until C is completed. Therefore, we have to wait until day 14 no matter what to get there. Even if we complete B in 12 days, we still have to wait, because we can't go past here until C is done because of this dummy. So now we can't do this one because we have other arrows going in. So we can do this one here because there's only one arrow going in, and that's this E. So we have 19 because 5 plus 14 is 19. Now we can do this box up here as well. So we have this one will be 26. This one will be 11 plus 19, which is 30. We take the bigger of the two, that's 30. Now we can do this box here. So we have the 19 going in, we have the 14 going in, and we have the 14 going in. The biggest of those is the 19, so that's what we'll do. Now this box down here, that's going to have to be 19 as well, because it's essentially the same point as this node because of the dummy. Now to figure out what the sync node is going to be, we have 19 plus 13, that's 32. Here we have 32, and here we have 30. So 32 is the biggest, so we could do that. We know the bottom one's going to be the same, so we write 32, because that's the latest it can be completed at. Now we're just going to work our way backwards, so we have 32 minus the 13 is going to be 19 again. And since there's no other arrows going into this, that's the only answer, so it has to be 19. Now the two arrows going back into this box, we have 12, so 32 minus 12, that's 20, so we have 20, or we have 19. We have to choose the smaller of the two, so it's going to be 19. We have to choose the smaller of the two, because if we wrote 20 here, then we have the 20 plus this 13, that would be 33. The project would actually get delayed, and that's why we have to choose the smaller of the two to make sure it doesn't get delayed. For this top one, it's going to be 30, because there's only one edge going into it, and that's 2. 32 minus 2 is 30. Then we have this box here, so our options are 19 coming from here, 32 minus 11 is 21 coming from here, or we have 19 coming from here. So we have to choose the smallest one, so that's going to be 19. Now we can look at this one. We have 30 minus 12, which is 18, or we have 19 minus 5, which is 14, so we're going to have to do 14 because that's the smaller of the two. For this one here, we have either 19, or we have 19 minus 3 is 16, choose the smaller of the two, it's 16. Then finally for this one, we have 19 minus 4 is 15, or we just have 16, we have to choose the smaller one, so it's 15. And there we go, that's the diagram. The part 3 asks us to write down the critical paths, and remember the critical path is basically a path that has to be done with everything, one thing straight after the other. There can't be any delays whatsoever. So one way of seeing that easily on the diagram is when the two numbers are the same, because it means that the late time is the early time, we can't delay it by any time. So I'll just draw in red, one could be A, then down to here, and then to here. So that's 1, that's A, E, I. We could also have A, then do D, and then L. We could also have A, then E, then J, then L. Then we could also have A, E, then to here, then H. And finally, we could also go down to here, and then up to here, that's A, E, K. In part 4, we're asked to draw a Gantt chart. So basically, that's just explaining what a Gantt chart is, but I'm just going to do it. So the first step of a Gantt chart is the top row has to be one of the critical paths. So I'm going to choose A, E, J, L because that's the longest critical path, and the more we can get done in the top row, it means the less rows we're going to have to use later on. So activity A is 14 days. We'll just write in this is A, and it's 14. E is 5 days. J is 11 days. And finally, L is 2 days. Now I'll just go through them alphabetically. So after A is B. So B starts at the start and it'll last 12 days. And as you can see, this part can be delayed up until day 16. So we have 4 days of leeway after B is completed, because B is completed in 12. And then we have 4 days after that until 16, and then it has to be done. So we indicate that by writing the rectangle. We write B12, and then we do a dotted line up to day 16. Next one is C, so C is 14 days and it can be delayed until 15 days, and it starts at the start. Next one is D, so D starts on day 14 and it takes 12 days and it doesn't have to be completed until day 30. So D will be completed on day 26, then we have 4 days of leeway. So D can start on day 14 and it takes 12 days, which will bring us up to 26. Then we have until day 30 to complete it. E is already in our critical path, so we don't need to do that. F can start on day 14, it takes 4 days, and it can be delayed until day 19. So if it starts on 14 plus 4 is 18, it can be delayed 1 day, and it starts on 14. G can start on day 14, and it has to be done by day 19, so 14 plus 3 is 17, and then we have 2 days of leeway to bring us up to 19. H can start on day 19, and it doesn't have to be completed until day 32. 19 plus 12 is 31, so we have 1 extra day to complete it after that. I can start on day 19. It takes 11 days, so it'll be done by day 30. Then we have 2 days of leeway. J is in our critical path, so we don't have to worry about it. Whereas I made a mistake on H and J. These are starting on day 18. They should be starting on day 19, so I'm just going to fix that now. And finally, K can start on day 19. It'll take 13 days, and that'll take us up right to the end. So that should be the completed Gantt chart. In the last part, we're asked to write down the activities which may be happening on day 18. Well, we can have a look at day 18. That's this column here. So we can see E will definitely be happening. D will definitely be happening. F will definitely be happening. And G could be happening if it gets delayed by a day, which it's allowed to do. And that's it.